Okay. Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. My name is Amy Fidler and I'm a professor of graphic design at BGSU and our internship coordinator. You are here as part of this session and we are very excited that you are here to attend AAF Toledo's first virtual ever CareerCon event. So I am moderating the session and please note that we are recording and posting it on the website aaftoledo.org so that you have access to the content after the fact as well. To start, I'd like to introduce each one of our panelists in the session today. We'll begin alphabetically with Allison Benbow. Allison Benbow is a current undergraduate student studying graphic design at Bowling Green State University. She grew up in Maineville, Ohio. Outside of graphic design, she has an interest in illustration and loves spending time outside. Her internship was held through American Modern Insurance Group. Next introduction goes to Matt Kerr. He began his professional career in the advertising field in 2018 after earning his degree in journalism and public relations from BGSU, Go Falcons. Prior to graduating, he found an internship at Thread Marketing Group in March 2018, which gave him his first look at what it was like to work at an agency. This internship provided him the opportunity, provided to be the best decision of his college career as it paved the opportunity to his first full-time position in the industry. He is still at Thread Marketing Group 3 years later. He's an account coordinator, which means that he does a little bit of everything from strategy to implementation, to research, to analytics, to account management, to project management. Now, a few years into his career, he feels like he's nearly a full-fledged adult. Just bought his first house here in Toledo with his wife. So we're excited to have you share your experiences with us today. And finally, Lindsay West is a 21-year-old graphic design major at BGSU. She first fell in love with art in middle school and soon after began exploring graphic design. Since then, she has designed BGSU and AIGA's Portfolio Review Day branding, interned at Falcon Media on campus at BG, and this summer she interned with Procter & Gamble in a virtual brand expressions co-op position. So thank you all for being here to participate in what I know is going to be an excellent discussion. Before we begin, we do have a few words from our gold event sponsors, Therma-Tru Doors and MADAV Collective, and our silver sponsor, the University of Toledo.
At Therma-Tru, we're not just building entryways that perform for a lifetime. We're making people feel at home. From the production floor to the front door and every step in between. Because we're all working together to make home better through security, performance, and style. Bringing innovation to life that makes an impact beyond our walls. Meeting the needs of families and welcoming new members to ours. Standing behind every component of our complete door system, engineered to perform for a lifetime. Helping our partners build trust so they can build stronger businesses. Providing security people can count on in timeless designs that fit their personality. Being a part of houses that families are proud to call home. Confident that they made the right choice for the long run. The moments behind every door are always at the front of our mind. We strive to make the places where we live, where we play, and where we work always feel like home.
MADAV Collective provides professional branding, advertising, and design services for small nonprofit organizations. Our residency program pairs aspiring creatives with expert mentors from the MADAV Group family of agencies. Creatives get paid for their work and build a foundation for a successful career in Toledo. Mentors donate their time to develop the next generation of talent. And our nonprofit clients get agency-level marketing services that don't break the budget.
Let's say you're someone like Anthony. Smart, hardworking, up for a challenge. You check out big old anonymous state university. And you feel, well, like a number. Then you do a 180. You visit the tiny technical school in your neighborhood. But now you start thinking they may not have the majors, research, technology, and experiences that you're sort of expecting. And then you check out U Toledo. You meet a professor, and she tells you about the clinical experience you'll get right here at the University of Toledo.
Let's say you're someone like Hannah, bright, resourceful, ready to go. You check out fill-in-the-blank state university, and you feel, well, a little lost. Then you reverse course. You visit that small college your uncle went to, but now you're stuck in neutral wondering if maybe they don't have the majors, internships, research, facilities, and activities that you're sort of expecting. And then you check out U Toledo. You meet an advisor, and he tells you about the experience and mentorship you'll find right here at the University of Toledo.
So you have the opportunity to sign up for interviews with each Mad Ave and Thermotru doors either on Saturday during day 3 of the event or on Monday or Tuesday of next week. So your email pass should have instructions on how to sign up for these interviews if you're interested in that opportunity. And the links will also be posted in the chat. We want to thank our other silver sponsor, LaPlante Real Estate. LaPlante is a full service real estate brokerage and property management company providing a full spectrum of housing service to clients, whether they're looking for residential brokerage services like buying or selling a home, investing in Northwest Ohio's rental properties, or seeking to rent a home in Toledo. Find them on Facebook at LaPlante Real Estate or www.laplanterealestate.com. And finally, thank you to our bronze sponsor, Owens Community College. We do thank all of these organizations for their gracious support of this event because without support, events and excellent programming like this would not be possible. So we'll begin today with the discussion part. We would like to encourage you, of course, to mute your microphones so that the panelists are able to clearly be heard by all attendees. And we'd like to encourage you to ask questions in the chat. So towards the end of the conversation, we'll probably the last 15 minutes, we'll dedicate that time to answering questions in the chat. So don't be shy. Let them know. Let them know what you're thinking and what you're curious about. So the Adventures in Interning panel is essentially going to cover internships with a broad stroke. So we'll begin first with just the big question, kind of what was the entry point? How did you go about securing your internship? Matt, let's start with you.
Yeah, so you've heard it before, I'm sure. Networking matters. It's important who you know and who you surround yourself with. I was able to get my internship with Thread, where I currently work, through one of my networking connections. You know, I knew the kind of company that I wanted to get experience from, and I just made sure I knew people who had connections to the people there. So from there, the more connections you make and the more conversations you have, you're gonna find your way into somewhere as long as you're making those connections and being active about it. So it's absolutely important to form those connections and relationships with people, and they matter. You know, if you're in a stack of resumes, you're going to be at the top of it as long as you've been mentioned by someone that company trusts. So I think it's invaluable. It's important to start with networking and make sure you know the right people.
Lindsay, what was your experience like?
So I definitely can speak to networking. I first worked on campus at an unrelated role, and it was in marketing and communications. So in that role, I was working with designers over at Falcon Media. So when it was time to get my internship for class, I said, hey, I'm looking for an internship. Are you guys like hiring? Are you guys willing? And that's how I secured that internship on campus. So as I was working there, I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. So this would have been a year ago at this point. And I was thinking about, well, what do I want to do over the summer? Do I want to continue maybe working here? Do I want to try to get another internship? And at that time, with COVID was just starting, it was like a little unsure. So I went on LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn has been a great resource for me. I would definitely encourage other people, other students to make a profile. And that's how I have found a lot of different internship opportunities. And you can apply directly through LinkedIn. So that's what I did with P&G. And I applied. And then 3 months later, they emailed me and said, hello, like, we are interested in doing an interview. And it all went really well. And I ended up working there this past summer. And it was virtual. So that was definitely a learning experience.
So you had sort of both opportunities, you worked through networking and also did sort of a cold call.
Yeah.
Allison, how does that align with what you experienced?
Yeah, so this past summer I had an internship at American Modern, and essentially I had no connections to American Modern. I was like trying to network. I knew like a few people, but I kind of like asked around and like exhausted those opportunities and nothing really came up. So I just started applying to as many internships as I could online. Like I don't even know how many, so many, too many to count. And a couple of them got back to me with interviews. And one of them, they interviewed me and then it didn't end up working out. And then American Modern interviewed me. And actually, while I was like waiting to hear back from American Modern after they interviewed me, I was also like getting offered interviews or having also been interviewed by a couple of other companies simultaneously. So that was kind of fun. I was like, wow, I gotta get something, but yeah. And so I don't know, I just kind of applied to as many as I could. And then technically I am currently the graphic design intern for Jason at the School of Art, which wasn't really, it was kind of like an informal, like last minute thing because I've worked there as a media specialist since I was a freshman, which I just got lucky. I just was applying to jobs on campus and kind of learned, Jason kind of like taught me how to work in Adobe Experience Manager, which is like the web management system we use for the BGSU website. And so through that, eventually when I was, I'm a junior now, so I kind of just emailed Jason and was like, hey, like, I heard your previous graphic design intern graduated or something, like, can I fill that role? And he was like, yeah, sure. But also I will say it wasn't necessarily like a connection per se to get me to American Modern, but my experience working with web tools, I think, is what got me that job because they primarily had me working on their website. I did a few other things as well, but that was like the reason they brought me in was they needed help with the website, and I had web experience. So yeah, it's kind of worked out.
So you think that was definitely a quality that highlighted you as a candidate that was different than the others?
Yeah, definitely. Specifically Adobe Experience Manager, because I feel like that's not like very common. I don't know, at least from what I've heard, like I feel like a lot of places use WordPress and they were thinking about switching to Adobe Experience Manager with their website. So the fact that I already knew the system, I think, was helpful, and they ended up pushing off that change. So I just got more experience in WordPress, but yeah.
Excellent. Lindsay, what advice would you give to students applying for their very first internship?
So my advice would be kind of just this is gonna sound a little cheesy, but like, go for it. Don't limit yourself right off the bat. You never know where applying somewhere is going to take you. Don't get any sort of like fear of like this rejection, because you're a student, you're young, and you're still learning. Don't take anything personally. So I think for me, I had already started interning at Falcon Media. I loved it there. I still work there now. Just now it's not like in an internship role. And I thought about, getting this other internship, and I wasn't quite sure at first. I was like, I don't know, like if I'm good enough for any of these on LinkedIn, because they were big companies. And I thought, the worst thing that could happen is I don't apply and I never kind of experience kind of what this would mean. And even if you don't end up getting the role, like you still maybe get that experience of an interview. It's such a learning process. So apply to as many as you can. Don't limit yourself right off the bat with like thinking, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. So
Matt, how does that question relate to your experience? What advice would you have?
Yeah, I think the advice that I would give is to be strategic about where you would like to, intern at. Not to say that you shouldn't apply anywhere and everywhere, but you should think about this as a step towards your professional career, and think about what is going to provide you with the best experience. You might get multiple options where you have the opportunity to be selective. If that's the case, really think about how this internship is going to impact, your diverse skill set. So when I was seeking an internship, and I knew I wanted to kind of get into, advertising and communications, where I wanted to work, it was going to either fall to the corporate side or possibly to the agency side. So I did apply to both. I ended up seeking an internship more heavily on the agency side because I thought they would offer a more diverse experience for me that would then make you a more marketable candidate for your professional career. So going towards the agency side, I knew that I would be able to work in multiple industries at the same time and get more experience that I could then either take to the corporate side, or if I wanted to stay on the agency side, I could do that too. So being strategic about where you try to find an internship, I think, is important. And so that's the advice that I would give. Find something where you're going to get the most diverse experience.
And clearly you're still there multiple years later. So it must have been a very successful internship. So Matt, what were some of the things that you felt really made your experience in that internship successful? And this can be stuff, I'm looking for a wide range of pieces of feedback. Is it things that the agency is doing? Is it related to mentorship? Is it your approach? The question's wide open.
Yeah, I think, I would say making sure that you're keeping yourself available to learn new things during your experience too. Saying once you're at your internship, I think saying yes to as much as you can and putting your best foot forward in all of those efforts. The experience I had did give me the opportunities to learn new things and experience, different parts of the agency. And I said yes to everything and tried my best at everything. And that helped me to learn what I wanted to do, moving on into my professional career. So I left BGSU with a degree in journalism and public relations, and it's a small piece of the pie from what I do now because I opened myself up to new experiences. And now I do things that are, directly related to advertising or project managing website builds. It really is diverse. So I think making sure that you're saying yes to everything and understanding what you want to do throughout that.
So Matt, I am curious, was there anything you said yes to that you regretted?
Not that I regret, no. Because after you try something, you can always decide that it's not for you later. And then at least There's a lot of things that you're not going to know if you enjoy or are good at until you try them. And there are things that I'm not good at that I tried, but at least I tried, and at least I know now. And it helps you develop your kind of identity as a professional too, understanding what you're good at. So.
I love that answer. He wouldn't tell us anything juicy.
I don't have anything juicy, to be honest.
Allison, do you have thoughts on how to make that internship a success? And whether it's
Yeah.
on the intern's foot or the employer's foot, what are some of those things that contribute?
Yeah. I had a really good kind of like direct supervisor / mentor. His name is Sean. We love Sean. And basically I would just like say like be really open and like keep the communication really flowing between you and your direct supervisor. After I got in there and after I accepted the position, after like being in there for like maybe about a week, I realized I was like, wait, because there were a bunch of other interns brought in with me. And so we were kind of just doing general intern introduction stuff for the first like week or so, maybe a little bit less. And Sean finally gave me like a list of like, okay, here's exactly what we're going to be doing over the summer. And I was like, wait, like there's not a lot of like the kind of like graphic design stuff that I wanted to do in here. Like it was technically graphic design because it was like we were working on the website and I would be helping build new web pages and stuff, but I wanted some additional experience. So I was just like, hey, Sean, like I was kind of under the impression I'd be doing a little bit more like design work in terms of like building stuff other than websites. And because in the interview they were like, oh, you'll be doing a diverse range of things. And he was like, oh, okay. And they just hooked me up with another design person and I was able to take on some additional projects. So it was easy. But yeah, I would just suggest that like if you get in there and you want to try other things, kind of like what Matt was saying, if you want to try other things, or if it's, you know, there's something that you're like, oh, wait, this isn't what I expected, I would just be open and talk to your supervisor about it. And, you know, they're not going to say no to for you asking for more work, you know, like they're like, oh yeah, sure, but you know, we could use the help. So yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice.
It's so important to advocate for yourself and good fits. Lindsay, do you have thoughts on what makes an internship a successful experience?
Yeah. So right off the bat, I guess at P&G, they have kind of a path laid out for you. Right at the beginning of the internship, it's called like My 5 Rocks, and they have like 5 things that you'll be doing over the summer, and they kind of split up, like you'll be working on this project, you know, maybe 20% of the time. This project will be a bigger project. And so knowing that, I think definitely, like as Amy said, you know, be an advocate for yourself. If you see a project that you're really interested in, do some research maybe on your own. And don't be afraid to ask questions. That was something my boss at P&G said a lot. She was like, do you have questions? And I think maybe at first I was a little maybe afraid to ask questions for fear that like it'd make me seem like I didn't know what I was talking about. But that's not the case at all. They want to see you asking questions. They want to know that you're invested in this internship and in what you're doing. And it could even be the smallest question. And it just definitely shows that like you're taking what you're doing seriously and you want to learn. I think always learning is probably, you know, the best way to go about it. It's just a learning experience.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. You've all have different experiences on the types of places that you've interned with and the number of other people going through a program. And so it's really, I think, important to note that no internship looks the same. You know, places approach them in a wide range of ways, where there can be formal programs to very organic approaches where you're working very closely with just a singular mentor. So just how do you go about navigating the workplace politics of your internship experience? Whoever wants to jump in first is welcome to.
I could jump in. So yeah, I feel like this question kind of like I can relate well to it, just because my internship on campus at BGSU, I worked directly with kind of a mentor, Paul. Paul's great. Shout out to Paul. And it's more of like an in-house agency on campus. And then at P&G, it was totally different. It's a huge company. And there are so many people that I got the opportunity to meet. And so I worked with my boss in that capacity, but it was kind of like we had a weekly meeting that we would talk, but even every day, it wasn't like we'd email each other back and forth. So the biggest thing at P&G, like with kind of like the politics of it, I guess, was setting up Zoom meetings, since mine was virtual, but just setting up meetings with as many people in the company as you can, just to talk about what they do. And then that kind of helps too, because now, like, as I'm looking for a job after graduation, you can email them, say, hey, like, do you know if they're hiring? And at P&G too, we worked with like outside agencies, like design agencies, and I got to know them very well. I can email them. So just definitely networking, and that kind of helps with kind of the politics of things.
Allison or Matt, do you want to add anything to that question?
I think Lindsay covered most of what I was gonna say. Kind of like similar to that, I came in with a bunch of other interns, but I was pretty much the only one in the creative department. So I was kind of like not working with any of the other interns for most of my internship. I was just like with Sean and the other like full-time team. But they did have like weekly like intern lunches where we would all like get on Zoom and eat lunch together. And not that many people went to them, weirdly enough. Like there were, I don't know, there were at least like 30 or more interns total. And usually there'd be maybe like 10 people max, often like more like 4 at these little lunch things. And so that kind of was like, oh, well, like, you know, now I can really kind of talk to these people and like get to know them. And I still have a couple people, and we don't, I wouldn't say we talk regularly, but we like added each other on LinkedIn, and one of them like messaged me and was like, hey, how are you doing? Like, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, I just take every available opportunity to get to know the people you're working with, because it'll probably benefit you later as a networking connection.
Also, I want to add to that, at my internship, it was virtual too. So we had like the weekly lunch meetings with the interns. And I definitely kind of had that same experience where not everybody always showed up. So show up. It's great. Like you get friends, but then also maybe future connections. But also like at P&G, at least, we had like people were on like tiers. So you could be like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, like employee. I was probably like, as an intern, maybe a tier 0. I don't know. But don't be afraid to like meet with the tier 5s. It's definitely like probably scary, but just because like maybe there is that like level based, even if it's unspoken, don't be afraid to meet with them.
So did you strategically, so Lindsay, did you set out specifically to try to connect and network with other people at different levels, or was that something you had to sort of work up the courage to do?
Definitely, I had to work up the courage to do it. I feel like I started my internship and I was a little timid, but luckily, like my boss, she had a few meetings scheduled out with me over the summer to meet with other people. And so by meeting with those people that she told me would be great to meet with, it helped work up the courage to meet with, you know, my boss's boss and like just other people throughout the company. And because I worked with like cross-functional partners a lot, like I worked with R&D, I worked with a lot of just people in technical roles, people that were in, you know, maybe even like the finance part, just kind of learning about what they do also.
So that seems like one of the biggest lessons throughout your experience.
Definitely.
Allison, what was one of the biggest lessons you learned while interning?
Probably to very specifically ask what you'll be doing, because I don't want to say I was misled, but like in the interview, like it sounded like I was given the impression that I'd be doing a little bit of a broader scope of things than was actually planned for me. And I just kind of like went along with it, and I guess like assumed that, you know, I would be doing all these other things. And then, you know, first week comes around and you get the itinerary, and I was like, wait, this isn't what I thought. So I guess just be very, very specific in the interview process. And like, especially if you have multiple opportunities, like you're also interviewing them to some degree of like, do you want to work there? Like, does it seem like a great place or like a horrible place to work, you know? And, you know, obviously if your opportunities are limited, like, and you need an internship, I understand, like, take what you can get. But if you are able to have multiple options, really kind of pay attention during that interview process and like kind of evaluate them as well.
Okay, so one of the lessons, you spoke about this earlier, is advocacy, but understanding fit. So that's so important. Matt, what is one or several of the biggest lessons you learned while interning?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson that comes to mind for me is to take it very, very seriously, and to put your best foot forward. The reason for that is because you never know what it'll come out of. If we mentioned, the opportunity to, is this somewhere you want to work? If you do find that it's somewhere you want to work, all that hard work is going to pay off, hopefully. It has the potential to turn into a full-time position. If you showed your worth, if you put your best foot forward, if you proved yourself to be an asset to their team, all that hard work will have paid off in that way. And if it doesn't turn into, a position, or it's something that you're not interested in, you still tried your best at something, and because of that, it should be a learning experience for you, right? Either you developed a hard work ethic through it, or you learned new things. I think as long as you're trying your best throughout the whole process and taking it as seriously as a full-time position, I think there's nothing but positive that can come out of it.
I love the range of experiences on this panel, because obviously, you've been out of the role of intern for a little while, but at the same time, and so that gives you a little distance from the experience to see what the impacts were. And some have had physical internships, some have had virtual opportunities, small agencies, large corporations, and lots of ranges of structure. So Matt, I also would like to hear your thoughts on how do you navigate turning an internship into a full-time position?
Yeah, so I imagine it could be different depending on what company you're working for. I interned at, we would say it's a medium-sized agency. It's not too big to where there are people that you don't know, but it's not too small to where you're working with everyone. And because the size we were, I felt really comfortable with everyone that I worked with. I got to know pretty much everyone, all the way up to the president and CEO. I was speaking to pretty regularly, and I got to know. So because I had those relationships, I felt pretty confident just bringing it up, that I wanted to work there if there was an opportunity. So some of the things that I did, and throughout the summer, they were great, because if I did have opportunities to interview for full-time positions at other places, they were happy to let me, take a couple hours and go do interviews. They understood that I was graduating, and that I needed to find a full-time position. So they would let me do those kind of interviews. Whenever I got back from them, I would normally go talk about them, and they'd say, oh, like, how did it go? Like, what kind of questions did they ask? Do you see yourself working there? And I would kind of say, oh yeah, it went pretty well. I think it would be great, but I would really rather work somewhere like here, because I really like all the people here. So I was kind of planting those seeds as I went. And eventually, when my internship was coming to a close, what I did is I made an essay, and maybe it's a little corny. If you don't feel comfortable doing something like this, maybe there's another way to go about it. But I felt comfortable like writing an essay to the president of the company, why I think I would make a good asset to their team, what I would see myself continuing to do post internship if they were to hire me full time. And I basically just tried to sell myself as best I could. Eventually, we had that discussion where she brought me into her office and was like, "Hey, I have a job for you because I like the work that you've put in so far, and I can see how seriously you take this and how bad you want this." So they found a place for me because they knew I was interested and because they already, knew the kind of work that I was going to put into a full-time position. So if you're comfortable with it, I say, Lindsay brought this up earlier, to just go for it. That's kind of my advice. Just go for it if you're comfortable putting yourself out there.
And it sounds like there was not necessarily a position open at that time. And it sounds like your advocacy and persistence helped them see a space for you there. Is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure that they had hiring on their mind. If I would have left, I don't know that they would have been bringing anyone else in. But it kind of goes back to saying yes to everything and learning new things. They had the space for me because there were multiple things that I could do for them at that point. If one area of the agency needed help, I had some experience in it. If another needed help, I had experience in that too. So between all the things I learned, there was enough work for them to give me continuing into a full-time position. So I think that was really key to it.
So circling that question back around, is it appropriate to approach a company about an internship if one isn't listed and offered? What are your thoughts? This question can go out to anyone. What would you say?
I did actually do that and I was rejected, but nicely. So I think it's okay. Yeah, it was one of my like networking connections. It was like someone that my dad had worked with, and I like had emailed with her before, and I was like, "Hey, like, is your company open to doing interns?" And honestly, I don't know what would have happened if COVID wasn't happening, because I know they were like, "Oh yeah, things are pretty up in the air with COVID." Because I was emailing this when COVID, like we had been sent home a week previously, So I don't know what would have happened, but basically they were like, yeah, like maybe sometime in the future, but it's not really going to work out right now. But yeah, they weren't like, they didn't seem like mad about it or anything, and I don't really see, as long as you're respectful and you're just, you can show that you're genuinely curious and interested in working at that company. I don't see why not.
I absolutely think it's appropriate to. I got my internship that way, but it also helps to have a connection in that scenario. I knew someone that knew the people at the company and they were, confident enough in me. They knew me well enough to, shoot an email to the president of the company, CCing me on it, saying, "Hey, I have someone that's willing to learn and really wants an experience." And it took some time. They didn't just bring me in right away, but a couple months down the road, I was the first person that they contacted then when they decided that they did need an intern. So even if you don't get it right away, you never know. It could help to get yourself in there early, I think. You never know when they're going to be posting about an internship. So I don't think there's any harm in it, like previously stated, as long as you go about it respectfully and professionally too.
So yeah, I agree with that. I never did that personally, but when I was working at Falcon Media as an intern a year ago, we had a lot of people graduating. And so I knew that they were going to be filling positions, and I had already had my internship position filled, but I knew some friends that maybe didn't. So I told them, I was like, I know that they're going to need to hire people. I can give you my boss's email. He's very nice. He's very approachable. Don't be afraid to email him and just see what happens. And they actually ended up getting an internship. And now that I still work there, I'm just not an intern anymore. And now I work with them. So
that's awesome, because not only Did you create a better work culture for yourself? You helped lift other people up at the same time. So we're gonna transition into some questions from the chat, and I want to start off with an excellent question from Stephanie Miller. They ask, what classes prepared you the most for your internship experiences? And I want to start with Allison for this one.
Yeah, I would say definitely Amy's UI UX class. Not only because we like talked about, that was like the class where we like talked about getting an internship and like what to do, but we built our portfolio website in that class. And you know, that got me working in WordPress, and that ended up helping kind of get my internship with web work. So yeah, I would say definitely. But otherwise, like I don't know, I feel like that one really stood out, and then everything else is just kind of like the cumulative of like what you put into each individual project. I'm in a branding class right now, or D4030, and I think that will probably, some of my projects from that will probably help me get an internship this summer, just because it's like, it's very like thorough, large scale like work. But yeah, I would say that the UI UX class helped a lot, and then just other than that, just like really put your all into your projects and present them professionally.
Matt or Lindsay? Lindsay, I saw you unmute first. Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I can actually piggyback right off of what Allison was saying. The UI UX class was definitely helpful because obviously all of the other graphic design classes are so like important. And like what she says, they kind of like accumulate into this bigger like knowledge, but knowing some of the UX UI background has helped so much. And I would say one of my projects from that class, every single interview I've had, they have asked me about that on my portfolio. And I probably wouldn't even have had the portfolio website if it, weren't for that class. So just, I think maybe not even so much like being UX UI, but like, I think the key thing to take away from that is to kind of just diversify the classes that you take, because you never know which class is going to be the class that's going to get you that job.
Matt, what else do you have to add?
Yeah, you'll have to forgive me because I forget the name of the class at this point now that it's been a few years. But I took a course that we all had to take it, but it was like a technologies in journalism or technologies in communications. And going through it, it was kind of like an introduction to WordPress and basic, CSS and HTML. And I didn't take it very seriously because I was like, I would rather write press releases or come up with public relations campaigns, because that's what I was going to school for, was for PR. But I did learn in that class. I just didn't think I would use it. So, I'd take the class, get a B or an A in it, I forget, but, passed it. And later at my internship, going back to the saying yes to everything and putting yourself out there to new experiences, there was a web project manager that I was working with that was super overloaded and she needed a lot of help. And she was the only web project manager there. And I was like, oh, I know WordPress. I can hop in there and help you out. And so because I took that class and retained the information from it, even though I didn't think I was going to have anything to do with it down the line in my professional career, it ended up paving the way to, me being pretty good at that and doing it quite often at my job. So yeah, I would say, it's almost any class. It might be the class that you think doesn't matter. So you never know. You have to do your best at everything because, it's pretty unpredictable whether it will help you in your professional career or not. So take everyone seriously.
I want to give a little perspective on that answer, just a tiny bit. Obviously, I'm a professor and care very much about classes and academic experiences, but you don't have to take a class to learn some of these things. There's a lot of learning you can do on your own and being curious. So if there are people out there in the audience watching thinking, oh, I didn't do that opportunity, there's nothing to stop you from seeking it out on your own in alternative ways. So we have another question from the chat, and they ask, how do you navigate uncertainty in projects you were assigned to as an intern?
Just ask questions. That's as simple as that, If I didn't know how to do something, Sean would be like, oh, okay, you're going to do this today. And if I wasn't sure how to do it, like if I had an idea, or if I really did not know what he was talking about, I would just be up front right away and be like, Sean, you're going to have to show me how to do that, because I kind of get the general idea, but I'm not so sure about the specifics. And he's always very understanding. I think they would rather you ask questions and be upfront if you're unsure about something than potentially do it wrong.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that too. So what I found was really helpful is to always try something first. And I don't mean try and complete it to where it's, the whatever your assignment was done is done and out there. In our world, it would be, done and sent to a client or something. And at that point, it's kind of hard to come back on it. But what I mean is if you get an assignment or you have an opportunity where you don't know 100% what you're doing, or you have any questions, always just try first. And if you don't know, there's Google. You can find anything on Google. So just learn a little bit about it. And then when you go back to ask your questions, just show that you've at least tried. They'll really appreciate that you put some initiative into trying to at least figure something out or problem solve on your own. And then if once you get to a stopping point, there's no shame then in asking questions. But I think that if you try first, they should really appreciate that.
I can definitely speak to that too. Working in kind of an agency it was definitely a bigger step, because there were a lot of maybe smaller technical things that I wasn't familiar with. And so my boss would say, hey, can you do this project? And there would be a few things that maybe I wasn't sure if I was quite doing right. So, you go onto Google, you look it up, you do the best you can. And then when you go and you ask, hey, I did this, I'm not sure if this part is correct. And then your boss I'm sure will be more than happy to teach you, because essentially an internship is a learning opportunity. Yes, you work for them, but they should also be your teacher and your mentor. And they should be happy to, as long as you try and you put your best foot forward also, they will be happy to kind of give you all the information that you need to be the best employee that you can be.
Thanks, Lindsay. And thank you, Sally, for that question. It was excellent. Cooper Reynolds asks, what was your favorite project that you worked on at your internship?
There, sorry, I muted myself and then unmuted myself twice. When I was working at P&G, I would say one of my projects probably took up 70% of my time. And it was, we worked in mural a lot. I don't know how familiar people are with mural. I had no idea what it was before I worked there. So again, I had to go online, I had to look it up, what is this that I'm supposed to be spending all of my time on? But a big part of my internship was virtual learning and virtual design sprints. So we facilitated this through mural. So I had to do a lot of research into mural, a lot of research into the best way to kind of host these virtual design sessions and ideate with, cross-functional partners in a virtual setting. I was up in Toledo and a lot of them were down in Cincinnati. So how do you bring a product to life when everybody's kind of on a different page? So I put a lot of mural boards together, and it was really fun to learn about. It was really fun to put together kind of these templates to help teams, not only my own team, but then these templates could be shared throughout the whole company. And it was just really interesting to learn like how to apply my graphic design skills, but then also just kind of skills where like almost like how like psychology, like, okay, people learn best when this and this happens. So I think that would definitely be my favorite. And it was so like applicable to the times that we were in. So.
All right, Allison?
Yes. So I would say, my internship got extended. It was over the summer, and then it got extended through the fall semester. And so in the fall, they were kind of like, well, okay, you have this, you've been working here for a few months, you have this experience, so now you're going to be like kind of like in charge of this project. Like, I wasn't really like the only one working on it or anything, but it was like me and Sean was like, okay, well, you're going to coordinate everything, you know? And it was really fun. So we did like basically a refresh of one of the sections of the website of the product pages, like the different products that AMIG offers. And it was like from complete, like from beginning to end. You know, I helped like design the layout of the new page. I worked with like everyone else I can think of, like copywriters, like the creative director, Sean, who's like the website guy, the technical like graphic design team, pretty much everyone to help try to like form this website and get the layout set, and then do like photo selection for it and make sure all the copy fits. And it was just really nice to be able to like kind of take that project from like completely from start to end. And we finished it right before my internship ended. And yeah, it was a really great experience.
There's nothing like tackling something that's large scale with a lot of complexity. Lindsay, can you just clarify really quickly, when you were saying the name of the product you were using, is it Miro, M-I-R-O?
So that's another product that you could use. It's really similar, but the one I use is called Mural, M-U-R-A-L.
Okay, I wanted to clarify, sorry.
Yeah, I worked with both of them, so.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for that clarification. All right, Matt, same question. Did you have a favorite project that you worked on?
Yeah, so I worked on something called Toledo Jeep Fest. It's actually a large event. If you're from the Toledo area, maybe you've heard of it. Toledo's the only place in the world where the Jeep Wrangler and now the Jeep Gladiator, which is the pickup truck, is manufactured. So people around here take a lot of pride in it. The plant offers a lot of jobs. So there really is like a community, I guess, like togetherness, pridefulness in Jeep as a company. And people get really into it. I didn't know that until working on the event, but people get really into Jeeps. And so this event is like an 80,000 person event in downtown Toledo. And the agency that I work at does kind of does everything around the event, from, you know, managing the website to actually like staffing the event, and marketing the event, and, you know, coordinating media with it. It really does everything. Designing the merchandise, designing the logo, all of that is done at the agency I work at. So that project specifically helped me branch out into a lot of different areas and get a lot of experience, just because of how diverse an event is and how diverse a campaign around marketing an event is. So that would have to be my favorite, just because it gave me so much experience.
Okay, what an awesome event. We are getting close to the end of our session today, so I have two more questions. Quickly, Kayla Lewandowski asks, what websites do you recommend for creating digital portfolios? Just kamikaze, what do you say, Lindsay?
So I use WordPress, and then I also use DreamHost to kind of host my domain. And then with WordPress, kind of your options are endless. I've built like my own website with it's called Elementor, and that's really helpful. Or you could just use a WordPress like theme and then customize it that way.
All right, Allison, any thoughts quickly?
WordPress, it has templates, use them.
Matt?
Only WordPress.
Okay, you heard it here from the people that know. I want to close with McKenna, with a question from McKenna. Have your internships shaped your perspective on what you'd like to do in your futures, either with design or your profession? So we'll close with just a thought from each of you.
Yeah, I can go real quick. Yeah. I kind of really only got experience working kind of like in that big corporate setting. And it did help me understand that like maybe that is something that I would like to do eventually. But like this is kind of like the culture I would want and like the specific kind of projects I'd want to be working on. It definitely helped me kind of like get a feel for that.
So I was working in the agency setting first, and I love that. I love the hands-on design that happened at the agency. And then at P&G, I was in more of a brand management role. It was technically called brand expressions, but my boss was a brand manager. And there I learned a lot about like ideating and just how to kind of manage all of the assets of a brand. So it wasn't necessarily as hands-on. And I didn't think I would like that at first, but I really did, and kind of opened up my future possibilities in that way.
Okay, so Matt, in closing, same question. How did your internship shape your perspective on what you'd like to do in your future?
Yeah, I think it totally shaped what I wanted to do with my future. I mentioned earlier that you can kind of go corporate side, client side, or you can go agency side. I really like working at an agency. It kind of fits my personality. It's maybe a little bit more laid back. They can offer a lot of flexibility, and you kind of put your hands on a lot of different industries and projects. And I like how it's different day to day. I don't think I could see myself doing anything else. So I think it's infinitely important.
Thank you so much, Lindsay and Matt and Allison. You were phenomenal panelists. Thank you to the audience for giving us fantastic questions to respond to. We appreciate your time and energy tremendously. I'm your host and moderator, Amy Fidler, officially signing off from AAF Toledo's CareerCon Adventures in Interning panel.